Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast. Today we have a treat. We have a Course Diaries episode from West Byfleet Golf Club with a good friend of ours, Richard Pennell. Richard has already been on the podcast once, and I'm sure many of you have listened to his Eclectic 18, which was recorded up at Blackwell, the Members Lounge. It's a brilliant episode, and I could listen to Richard talk about just about anything, even better when it's about golf. Two little announcements, which is why I wanted to put a little cover note on this. First off, Richard has just released his first book, Grassroots. I demolished this thing in about 10 hours. It is a superb book. I think it's £15 with shipping, which seems absurdly good value. It's really, really good. It's witty, it's thoughtful, it's nostalgic, and it's got a really good story that goes through there, really connecting back to some of what Richard will talk about on this podcast, which is his, resurgence and falling back in love with the game of golf. For anyone who's not already signed up to Richard's Substack page, Stymied, he sends out all these wonderful nostalgic musings on a weekly basis, and I would highly recommend having those fly into your inbox free of charge. I'll pop both the links for those down in the show notes below. The second announcement, which possibly even more excited about, is our second Retro Day event, which we're going to be having on Thursday the 19th of October at West Byfleet Golf Club, which is why we wanted to announce it on this podcast. Why West Byfleet? Well, I think it's a wonderful place. We've spent a little bit of time there, and I don't want to spoil the pod too much, but I think it will set up brilliantly for this event. But, earlier this year we had our first one at Minchinhampton. That was a huge success. People had so much fun curating their nostalgic sets of golf clubs, retro equipment, whether clubs had different meaning or why they wanted to play them. People connecting through WhatsApp on a group, talking about all this sort of stuff was a huge amount of fun. And we thought we'd move it on this time. So we've partnered up with Sounder. Many people will know we're good friends with James Day and the rest of the gang over there. James is pretty much the authority on vintage equipment, so it would seem stupid not to have them along for the ride. And our Minchinhampton event rolled quite neatly into the Sounder Festival at Cleve Hill, so we figured why not just join forces. The day is going to cost £80. That's going to cover all your golf, breakfast on arrival at about 11:30, and there'll be a retro-themed dinner, so you can keep an eye out for vol au vents and quiches and things of that nature in the evening. Prizes for best on show, and it won't just be about retro equipment. We'll be looking for vintage threads. At Minchinhampton, some people even turned up in retro cars, which was quite spectacular. It'll be a fantastic event, but to make it even that little bit more special, we're going to be doing a bit of work, a bit of charitable work. So West Byfleet Golf Club, one of the things they're hugely proud of is the work they do for charity, and they do at the moment they've been running some equipment amnesties for golf in Uganda. So we will be asking people who come to that event to provide any equipment which they think will never see the light of day again. And I'm sure many people who listen to this podcast have a shed or an attic or a garage filled with equipment from yesteryear that will probably never be used again. So we'll be doing an amnesty, and that will be going off to Entebbe Golf Club in Uganda. At the moment, the golf development program and the work they're doing with the juniors mean that they have to share clubs in groups of 1 to 10. So, 10 people sharing one club to learn the game, and they're passionate about it, and they really want to continue to develop the game of golf in Uganda. And I just think that's a wonderful way to put equipment that's not currently being loved to better use. So, on top of there being a great golf day, we think it's a wonderful cause. The details for that will be on our blog, www.cookiejargolf.com. Make sure you're signed up to the newsletter. Head over to the blog page, check it out, and sign up. First come, first served. You're going to have to be quick. And I'll try and put another link, if the system will allow, yet another link in the show notes below. But without further ado, it is over to Richard Pennell for a wonderful Course Diaries episode about West Byfleet Golf.
Watch this.
We're in now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're in. Are you in, Richard?
Let's check.
I don't know.
Just talk for me,
Is
Richard.
that doing anything?
Yeah, you're doing something.
So you always get nervous when you're going to a toilet and you don't know.
Yeah, always a little bit nervous when I go to a toilet. I don't know. I heard the story when I was at university. It was like this house party or something happened in uni. This bloke went to the toilet and like they couldn't open the door. So they had to call the fire brigade to get him out because he was locked in for something like 6 hours. So now I'm always like, I wonder if this is one of those doors which I can't escape from.
Do you just always leave a safe route?
Well, we are currently sat in the snooker room of West Byfleet Golf Club, and it was kind of just up from here. It's got its own dedicated toilet that I used, and I thought, luckily it had a nice window there. I thought, if needs must, I could climb out of it. So.
Without further ado, before we completely ruin the tone of this podcast, Richard Pennell.
Hello.
Welcome back to the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast.
Thank you, guys. Good to be back.
I listened to your Eclectic 18 a month or two ago. It's a really, really good podcast, that one.
Thank you.
It's a really good one. It's probably my favourite Eclectic 18, I would say.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, apart from that you disqualified one of my selections, but we won't dwell on that today.
There was a lot of sort of 11th hour changes. We're currently sat in the snooker room at West Byfleet Golf Club. This is a Course Diaries episode about West Byfleet Golf Club. But I think there's space, would you agree, Tom, for a brief tangential conversation about snooker rooms in golf?
Yeah, I just before we rolled on air, I asked Richard if he gets used. A lot of these, I don't know if it's just the places that I visited recently, but there's been a trend of people perhaps wanting to get rid of their snooker rooms and perhaps don't get a ton of use. You said this one gets used quite well?
Yeah, fair amount. Yeah, mainly by me because it's directly above the office, so it's ideal.
And as long as I'm here, the snooker room stays. So you've got 2 full-size snooker. Are you good?
Yeah.
Are you a good player?
No, but I can't shank a snooker ball, so I do come up here sometimes.
I don't know. I reckon I could give it a good
Yeah.
crack.
Yeah.
There's something great about snooker rooms, though, aren't there, in golf clubs?
Yeah.
Because they just, I think, after golf, you need more games. You need more activities once you've been on the course.
Yeah.
And when you've had a drink, there's just nothing better. When we had our spring meeting event earlier this year, we took the full crowd, well intoxicated, into the snooker room at Moortown, which I think is one of the great snooker rooms in the game, and just played a very simple game, putting a triangle in the position with where you'd put the reds. And you had to circumnavigate from the D, circumnavigate the triangle in 3 shots and get the ball back to the D.
Right.
Which is doable, but the problem is you're not allowed to touch the cushion. So that provides, when you say touch the cushion with the
And
white...
you can't touch the triangle either.
Yeah, so you've got to lag the white ball from the D down to the far end without touching the cushion to then lag it across. And so you've got a clear shot back at the D without touching the cushion with the white.
Right.
And then you've got to get the white
Sounds
back
tricky.
into the D. It's really tricky.
So you were there for sort of 7 hours and it was getting
Well,
dark
no, it's a good
outside.
game if there's... So there was, 30 people wanting to play, and only, obviously, they've got 2 snooker tables. 2 more time or 3? 2 snooker tables, so
I think.
you can only obviously have 4 at a time. But it's a way that you can get everybody involved quite quickly, and everyone kind of gets engaged. And when everyone's lubricated, it kind of gets quite vocal. It sounded like the darts by the end of it, didn't it?
Yeah, it was getting a bit raucous. I'm really looking forward to this episode because we've been down at West Byfleet a little bit over the last few months, played it a few times. Really, really enjoy the golf course. I actually leafed through the club's history as well recently, and it's fascinating. I'm fascinated with the history of New Zealand Golf Club, Locke-King, Muir Ferguson, everything around this little sort of parcel of land in Surrey that we find ourselves in. And I think this would be quite an interesting podcast because you have previously been the Assistant Secretary at New Zealand.
Yeah.
And now find yourself as the Membership Secretary here at West Byfleet.
Yeah.
A wonderful golf writer and amateur historian, full-time historian, I don't know.
And Hickory
Very much
savant.
amateur.
Hickory
Even
savant.
more amateur Hickory player.
Yeah, so I just think you've got all the credentials for quite a good podcast here.
Excellent. Well, we'll see where it goes. It's an interesting part of the world. 2 clubs within, what are they, a drive and 3 iron of each other. both very old, and sort of some shared heritage if you go back far enough. So Locke-King, who founded New Zealand apparently after a wager in a London club, I think it was White's, built it sounds like, well, the rumour goes that he was dared to, or challenged to build a golf course out of some of his forest land, and he apparently owned unbroken land from Weybridge, which is where his family home was, to the south coast. I'm not sure if that's ever been proved or proven, but to be even in that ballpark, he had
was
a
an
ludicrous
extremely wealthy
fortune.
person, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Extremely
inherited
wealthy.
an extraordinary estate and so on. And there's not that much evidence that he played golf himself, although he was definitely at New Zealand a fair amount. And New Zealand was always the golf club of this sort of group of people, including Muir Ferguson, who was a supreme amateur in his own right. And they'd come down from London on a train. There was a halt just around the corner from here where the train would stop. And a horse and cart had come down from New Zealand and ferry him a few hundred yards up the road. So that was 1895. And then 1906, I think I get the feeling they'd had enough of the locals knocking on the door and saying, can we play here at New Zealand? Because it was a club for the London elite. And so Locke-King gave a parcel of his considerable estate to the locals to be used as Bleakdown Golf Club. And so golf started being played on here in 1906. But it's difficult. There's so many sort of rumours and old wives' tales about New Zealand. It's quite hard. I'm trying to dig through some of that stuff at the moment and find out what's factual and what we're never going to know for sure. But that's certainly one of the rumours. Oh, it may be one of the faux pas, heading back to one of your recent pods.
In fact, the history faux pas is buried within Simon Haynes' recent podcast, because he talked about the founding of New Zealand, why it was called that.
Yeah.
And I think when we came down here, you quickly said, well, he's made one of his own here, because it was nothing to do with that making it feel like a faraway land. It was to do with some colonies or something I think people owned or something at the time.
And Locke-King's wife's family were from New Zealand, so
So just before we do, the whole stuff when you drive into this little part of Surrey, you go past the McLaren. I don't even know what it would call it. It's like their offices for the F1 team.
McLaren headquarters.
Factory.
That's all part of Brooklands then. So for anyone who's not familiar with this part of the world,
No, that's Mercedes-Benz world.
Mercedes-Benz. Is that linked to Brooklands? Is that part of where... So Locke-King, help try and explain what I'm trying to allude to. Do a better job of podcasting for me, Richard.
So someone looped Locke-King into building a golf course. So that was New Zealand, and he lived in Weybridge. But he and Ethel, his wife, were big into cars. A few years after New Zealand, the motor cars had started appearing on our roads, and they had the means to invest in those and drive them around at high speed. And so he built at his own expense Brooklands motor racing circuit, which was the first of its kind in the world, and huge banked corners. And you can still see some of that track down by an enormous Tesco and the Mercedes-Benz world down in Brooklands itself. And there's an amazing museum there, and it's like a visitor attraction, but they have loads of old stuff there, including Ethel's original car, which I can't remember what it's called. It's like a V8 thing that's worth 2 million quid or something, and they have a snooker table there. There's another fine, but unlike the Crucible or West Byfleet, there's only one table there, so disappointing. So he built that, and that actually. So New Zealand was his plaything from 1895 to I think 1908, and he'd started to hemorrhage cash.
Didn't he build an aerodrome there or something as well?
Yeah, so there was an aerodrome there later on, I think.
It's easy to understand why he was
Is this
running out
before
of
he was
cash.
hemorrhaging cash?
Yeah, well, it seems as if his whole life was hemorrhaging cash, actually.
He'd inherited an ungodly amount of money and he was doing his best to get rid of it.
Yeah,
is
he
what
was
I'm
trying to
understanding.
downsize in terms of his wealth. So anyway, building Brooklands, I can't remember what the number was. I think it was 3 million quid in those days, which is just an incredible amount of money now. And that put him short of cash. So New Zealand turned from his private club to a members club. He let the members buy it, and then that's when a different type of history started up the road. And they have minute books of the company changing hands and holding formal meetings. None of that happened before that point. It was just him and his mates and Muir Ferguson, who designed that golf course originally, just running it themselves really for their own amusement when they hopped off the train from London. So he did that, and he gave this piece of land to the locals in 1906, or permitted them to use it. I think he sold it to the club in 1922, but he was running even shorter on cash after the end of the First World War because they needed to resurface Brooklands, and it almost bankrupted him. I mean, he's just a ridiculously wealthy guy, and
It's pretty spectacular achievement.
Yeah, he did well. Yeah, flamboyant lifestyle.
'Cause you couldn't
I
buy
think,
private jets, no.
No,
Couldn't. There's only so many ways you can spend your money.
no.
Oh, it seems like he's invented ways to spend money.
Yeah,
Like it didn't exist.
he was an innovator,
Yeah.
a disruptor.
He was a trailblazer and just completely setting fire to money. So
Yeah.
he was coming and collecting rent from the club and presumably from and that was Bleakdown that were
That was
running there. So
Bleakdown.
again, how is Bleakdown different from West Byfleet Golf Club?
So in 1906, golf opened here with a course built by Cuthbert Butchart, who designed or had a role in designing West Hill and
Pretty impressive resume.
Highgate.
Through it. Yeah, he had listed a few on there,
interesting.
didn't he?
And he was the professional here for a couple of years, and he also worked in that capacity at North Berwick and Royal County Down. He was well connected, and so his original layout is, it's quite a tight piece of land here, as you guys know. It's 134 acres, I think.
But it's a very small slither, isn't it?
It's
almost
a
like
strip.
a Linksland strip of land,
Yeah.
almost, I would describe it.
Yeah, and we'll come on to that maybe, but I didn't play here for the first 15 years of living within a mile of the place, and I assumed it was straight out and back because it's, it looks like a pencil, the aerial map. It's a sliver of land, and it's banked on one side by a railway, which, we know that's not a coincidence with many of these old golf courses. But so he designed a golf course. Then in the late teens, so 1918, 19, Locke-King just had somehow managed to almost bankrupt himself. So the club bought the land from him in the very early 20s and engaged. Obviously, the ball had changed in that period, like many of the clubs. And interestingly, the revisions to New Zealand just up the road didn't take place at the same time. Tom Simpson only came in when Muir Ferguson, who'd been the managing director there for the first, whatever it is, 25 years of New Zealand's existence. They only revised that course when he left, because I think everyone, by all accounts, was too terrified to broach the subject with him. Yeah. So, and Muir was also the secretary here for several years
at the same
when
time.
This opened at the same time.
So he would just basically, presumably, walk like you say, the half a mile or the quarter of a mile between the two.
Yeah.
Occasionally, make sure things were all ticking over, and
So
he was the man about this area really for golf. He was just running the golf scene here in the early 1900s.
Yeah, with a rod of iron, and it is frustrating. There's not that much information about Muir out there. I'm keen to, that's one of the many projects on my list. I'd love to learn more about him and dig through some
him downstairs,
archives.
haven't you?
Yeah.
Even though in a formal capacity, I suppose, apart from being the club secretary for a period of time, that's really his only involvement at West Byfleet. Is that right?
Yes, yeah. So I'd read that he laid out this golf course, but that's not, the history books, the centenary books prove otherwise. It was Butchart originally. And then when the club turned into West Byfleet Golf Club in 22, Abercromby was then, halfway through his career, celebrated architect and great golf courses, and I know you're another one of those tomorrow, but
a lover of hot air balloons, Abercrombie. Just loved hot air balloons.
I didn't know that.
Laid them out from a hot air balloon.
I never know whether you're winding me up or not.
Don't be serious.
I don't think
I would never joke about anything as serious as Golden Age architecture.
I don't think that was every
Richard.
course, but he
Well, we've got it as an idea, something we've been told, and I think
we've really ran with it.
I don't think I've read it in print. Now, in what print capacity and
we'll have to do some research. But apparently,
our listeners will fact check it, because most of our listeners know a damn sight more about this game than we
This
do.
could be a massive faux pas.
No, it won't, because I'll hold my hands up like I do most weeks if it's a mistake. But
I think it was
understood.
Coombe Hill.
I think he went up.
I think it was Coombe Hill. He went up in a hot air balloon,
Right.
and planned it.
Right.
Because think about it, you get a better
that would
perspective.
explain. I love Coombe Hill, but there's some fairly severe elevation changes there
Because
that
you
you
can
might
see
not
from the
see
air.
from the air. So, there we are.
And you've got Knoll Park, haven't you? And you've got
Park's
Worplesdon and the
amazing.
Coombe Hill
Addington, obviously.
would be a great Course Diaries, by the way. I think it's got a great history.
It's a good golf course.
But yeah, like you say, different profile line, quite flat, quite narrow, I suppose. Not too flat. But so Abercrombie was then brought in sort of 1922. So the club is pretty unique in the sense that it's had two centenaries within 16 years of each other.
Yeah.
And that's owing to the fact that they bought the land from Locke-King.
Yeah.
At that point, then you think then established Abercrombie to make some revisions to it. Now the history books had a.
Can I just ask a question? Why are there two centenaries? Just so we can clear this up.
They really like a drink here.
And what do they represent? The first one is the purchase of the land.
The first one is Bleakdown opening in 1906. Right. And so in 2006, by all accounts, they had a damn good year celebrating that. And then, but West Byfleet Golf Club as an entity itself, and also I think just recently in preparing for the centenary and writing of the centenary book, they realised how influential Abercrombie had been. I don't think it was widely known, or perhaps it was and it had been widely forgotten that he was involved here, because it didn't used to feature in Abercrombie's CV.
And that's the thing, and I suppose at the time it would have felt like revision work, and there's a lot of courses getting built in the 20s, weren't there? So you'd probably only put down the stuff that was entirely yours. Like you said, the first club history in 2006 doesn't really have a huge amount of reference to Abercrombie.
No. But his impact was massive. So of the Butchart design, the holes that are pretty much as you play them now are 1, 2, 5, 6 and 10, which was then the 7th. 7, let's think. So when Abercrombie was brought in, there was talk of needing to get needing to lengthen the course slightly to cope with a new ball, and there were major changes to the routing. So his routing, although it's a thin bit of land,
the routing's brilliant.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Because it's such a narrow piece of land.
How they managed to almost make it an out and back is actually...
Well, it's so narrow that, that it would feel like the only sensible way you can route it, because there's no room for holes to really go across the land or widthways. So it would feel like the only way you could really do it is to go out and back.
Yeah.
And what Abercrombie did in some of his rerouting, which is pretty interesting, was you play largely away. I know you've got the short par 3, the 4th that comes back, but you play largely away. And then you play 2 quite long golf holes that cut right across the property and take you back probably within 300 yards, would you say, of the clubhouse, where you've got where the 7th green is.
Yeah, and the classic halfway hut, which is just essential to playing golf at West Byfleet. Everyone stops there, and it's just part of the fabric.
How many
of the place.
visitors get lost
All of them, really.
Because there is a junction where it kind of hooks back on itself and you can come back a little bit, but also it keeps going. That would be midway through the back nine. And there's kind of a junction with 4 holes kind of intercross, isn't it?
That's right. So you play 6, and 6 is heading back in this direction, but from 2/3 of the way down the golf course. And you play 6, and there's a tee down to your left, which just feels all day like it should be 7. And that was 7 in Abercrombie's design.
Okay. Oh, was it?
So
he
that
didn't go all the
very
way back
natural
up here.
feel made sense. So he went left there, and then it went out. You went down that hole, and then Croom. So Abercrombie redesigned in 22, and most of what is out there is still his. But Arthur Croom, who designed Lip Hook and was at that point in business with Abercrombie, Simpson and Fowler, he was brought in to have a look because there was a feeling that they wanted a second starting point. So the original, the 10th tee in Butchart's was miles away down the railway line, and it was just the other side of the far end in Abercrombie's layout. And so it was Croom, we think, that pulled the 7th coming back this way from that 6th green interchange where you feel like you want to go left, but actually you carry straight on. I absolutely love 7.
Par 5 takes you sort of, it's a tough 2 shots for the bigger hitter to get home.
An enormous cavern in front of the green and round to the left, loads of good contour.
Is that a bomb crater?
Not sure about that one. So the following tee shot, the following hole, the 8th, in Abercrombie's routing had a different number, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but that has a circular bomb crater in front of the current tee. But I think Abercrombie's hole was a par 3 from the other side of the bomb crater, but the bomb crater obviously wasn't there at that point. But the 1x7 feels like it to me. It's severe, isn't it?
It's very severe and very circular.
It's so much fun. I mean,
and there's not a tremendous amount of that severe undulation in the land around it, and it's suddenly there, and you're like, I wonder whether either that or think it might, maybe it was once upon a time a big bunker that they've filled in, or not sure.
It's huge, and it continues around the left side of the green, which I know because I tend to sort of snap hook the ball a little, so it's quite hairy around the left.
Shanks.
Yeah, but not on the snooker table. So
I'm curious because you've fallen in love with this place, haven't you?
Yeah,
and the course, and I guess West Byfleet speaks to the quality of golf in Surrey and how deep it goes with really good golf courses.
Yeah.
But it's really different to the old course at Sunningdale or the Red at Berkshire. There aren't greens with heather painted across the tops of bunkers that all look like they could be the next sort of Graham Baxter painting. They are, the course is parkland, really, isn't it? I would say. There's no massive drama, I wouldn't say, within the course.
No.
But yet it feels so enjoyable to play. And I think it was when I was reading Jeff Shack's latest book about golf architecture for normal people, and he sort of says, there's 3 things that are really quite important for golf architecture, which you can simplify a topic that can get a bit carried away into 3 things. One of those, can you remember every hole? Second, can you play it every day? And third one, can you walk your dog around it? And he doesn't mean do they allow dogs, although he does say that's great. But essentially, could you walk your dog around it, and would the dog be completely exhausted at the end of it? No, would it be an enjoyable walk? Is it fitting with the natural landscape and stuff? And you sit and read that, and it's like, well, actually, that's West Byfleet to a T in my head. Yeah,
it's a delight. I mentioned earlier, I lived so close to this for 15 years. I passed it on my commute for most of those, heading to various places. I seem to have been trying to work the top 100. But when I first played it, I just couldn't believe that I'd not explored it earlier. It is so much fun. And what's been gorgeous the last 15 months working here is seeing people, and you guys included, and people whose opinion I respect, James Day.
That doesn't include us.
Yeah, no, that's why I listed it separately.
You
Sorry,
categorise it different. You guys, people I respect.
Sean Arbel, people who, they're so well travelled in golf, and watch them come and play here for the first time and just come off smiling, and that's what it does to you every time. It's just, I wouldn't say it's hard to lose a ball with a snap hook, but it's fairly open. There are trees here, but you find your ball. There's loads of, it's quite as well as being quite thin, it's quite a sort of flat property, as is New Zealand, but the micro contours are interesting, and you've got that lovely sort of flick down 13 over the pond, and then 14's climbing up.
I think 4's a really good fun short
par. Is 4 the one that the dog legs to the left, that kind of drops down? And
is which hole?
Which
4?
4's the par 3 up the hill.
Par 3 up the hill.
So but within the green, you've got all these contours. So like, if the pin's front left, you can, hit that shot would turn a wedge in, you try and spin it down, you can put the pin in the top right.
I don't really like 3. The dog leg to the left, big drop down. Got to drive it down. They can't drive it too far because you can run out of room on the fairway.
With micro contours, like you say, there's no massive movement of earth from left to right or front to back.
Yeah.
But then when you get in there, you see there's quite a lot going on. I'd say the 5th green is brilliantly complicated and fiddly. There's a lot of, not too fiddly where it's gimmicky, but there's a lot of like fiddly golf shots where you feel on the edge about playing certain things.
That's just your short game.
Yeah, it's just my own anxiety when I play golf. 8th, a wonderful short par 4. The green on, I'm going to say it's 15. Have I got that wrong? 15th green.
Oh yeah. I
mean, it's just an outstanding green, that.
Yeah, fantastic, and loads of interesting sort of pin positions in the corners of that one. And 18, if we stand up, you can see the sort of...
Tom won't be able to see out of this window even if he stands up, Richard, to be honest with you.
There we are, looking down at 18. I mean, look at it. It must be 40 yards front to back, and it's got loads of little tongues where you can stick the pin and stuff. It's just... Yeah, I don't think there's a weak hole. That's what I love about it. So many of these golf courses, you come away thinking, oh, that's a weird hole. I won't mention other ones where they're blighted by the odd weird hole.
Next to weak holes, don't you? Very commonly. And whereas this just it's just a continuum.
Yeah. And the other thing, it's really interesting. There's people here playing golf in the 90s, and some of those guys have been here, guys and girls, I've been here for decades, but I'm also exploring this place with my son Henry, who's just starting to play, and he's off the blue tees right at the front, and just every hole is playable for everyone who plays here. It's I don't know, somehow open golf. It's a very friendly club, and I think it starts with the golf course. It's fun to play. It's friendly. It's not you don't get beaten up out there very often. You might score more than you'd like, but yeah, I love it.
In terms of the membership and by extension then the visiting golfer, it's a busy club. This is a far cry from the number of rounds that Swindley will see on an annual basis, isn't it?
Yeah.
You were saying something like 40,000 rounds?
We're trying to work it out, and it's not that easy to do because alongside, so we have tea times most of the time here, and it seems to work really well. It's something that only came in with COVID, but it suits the club and seems to suit the members. But we do have a lot of roll-ups, and it is busy. There's always people out there. What's lovely, actually, offline, we mentioned it earlier, you mentioned it, Sam, just people keep moving. They're here to play golf. They don't hang about. They get around the golf course. So even though it's predominantly 3 and football play after first thing in the morning or after 8:30, I think it is, they get on with it. And it's because you don't lose your ball, and it's because you can't wait to hit the next shot. And it's just the whole thing flows from dawn to dusk almost here. And so it ends up being incredibly well played. But it stands up to it. It's bag shot sand. It drains well. The green staff do an amazing job. And
bag shot sand.
He's got me on that one.
So I look at Tom because Tom's now like the professional agronomist. He's coming out with things recently. You know when you don't know if someone's just really studying hard on something, but he comes out with lines about agronomy. I go, where on earth have you pulled that from? And he goes, listen.
Just
so when he said bag shot sand, I looked at Tom with sheer panic. And
but just say, if someone says something like that, say, yeah, I thought it was.
Yeah.
See, I now need to know what that is. Is that a type of sand, or is it the area that we're in?
It's gone very quiet in the snooker room.
Well, no, whether like the area is called
We found him
Backshot,
out, Tom. We
whether
found
it's
him
Can I
out.
phone
whether
a
the
friend?
area is called
Frost
Backshot
Nixon, except
Sands,
it needed
or whether it's a
two
actual.
Frosts and one
I
Nixon.
mean, it's like having a conversation with Ryan Nodes, and he's like, yeah, it's type B47 grand sand grain part 3. You know, it's
Well, what I can tell you is it drains well. It's just good soil for golf, and the grass roots grow through it. It copes with it's a tight piece of land with a heavy amount of golf being played on it, and still, you've seen it out there. It stands up to it. It's great.
Do you think? I don't even know why I'm asking this, if it's an important question or not. The course is obviously parkland in an area that's surrounded by heathland. Do you think that has an effect on how it's perceived?
Yeah, definitely. And you two are, I had the pleasure before the last part of seeing your lovely golf course, Blackwell, and I've been thinking about parkland since then, really. We're so... I absolutely love the links and I love heathland, but I think there's a sort of snobbery around parkland that helps us to overlook some fabulous golf courses.
That's a great take.
And this is one of those, and Blackwell's another, and there's just, I love heathland, but this is a friendlier golf course to play than some of the heathlands, because you're not continually breaking your wrist in stubborn heather or gorse. It's
and
wide
Parkland
open.
is the lifeblood of golf in this country. It's very easy
Yeah.
to say, well, the brand of golf really is links and heathland, which is fine because they represent probably less than 2% of golf courses up and down the land.
Yeah.
And actually, there's merits in Parkland, absolutely. And there's varying degrees
Because I think
of draining and soil structure of Parkland golf
it's
as
also
well.
a strange one here, because I'm pretty certain I want to be agronomist. I'm pretty certain that if you set your mind to it with the soil structure you have, you could probably grow.
No, because I think they
heather.
treated it with...
There was
what was
heather
it?
here.
What was the chemical?
Yeah, so in the book, there's
Got you here, Tom.
an allegation, I think, that there was a whole load of lime put down
There
at
you
a
go.
certain point, and the club. So
We'll never regenerate after that.
we've
Lime
if
can,
you
lime,
know
lime
that.
can do some serious bad stuff.
that
to-
right?
Yeah.
Why would they put lime down?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. But
But you're right. And so once it got rid of that, I think the understanding when you'd explained it was that there was some... You're always going to have a local rivalry, aren't you? And it's... Well, actually, we don't want the heather. There's far too much of it over at New Zealand, and we'll do just fine without it.
yeah, there's probably some of that. And they were enjoying playing golf here. Certainly a lot of the trees, if we believe what we read in the book, were planted during the Second World War to stop aircraft landing here and gliders and so on, and lots of that has remained. But the fact that it's there's some oak here, there's some deciduous trees. It's predominantly pine, which pine grows well in the same sort of conditions as heather. So you could definitely reintroduce heather. And that's been put to the club in the past, and they've decided not to. And it works fine. It's lovely.
Do you know much
But
about
there
it?
is like that, like you say, there is that thing that, you could see why you would do it from an external point of view. Introduce heather. It does look beautiful for sure. And suddenly, like you say, it could be, we're suddenly gone up 5 in the rankings. Isn't that great? But it's not. It is not the easiest to play day in, day out. You're famous for the guys who play in 4 balls around here, just whip around in 3 and a bit, and you don't get that in Heathland.
No, and I don't think they're that worried about rankings and so on. I think it deserves greater recognition. It's had, we didn't even mention Braid. Braid came here, and certainly the 17th is his. We think he had influence on a couple of the other holes, but it's quite difficult to see
Got a bag,
where.
didn't he?
Braid was absolutely prolific.
Mackenzie and Ebert have been working here
Braid must have
now
literally
for
never
about
spent
10
time at home.
years.
He must have been in constant trouble with his wife for being away.
Mm.
He just must have been.
Some of them were designed actually on the back of fag packets.
Yeah. But even like the great courses in Australia, they were like 2-hour visits from Mackenzie, and then
Never in a
Russell-
hot air balloon though. I think he missed the trick.
there's a commitment to time and and costing getting up in one of those.
So what do we know about Braid's involvement here then?
So he was asked in 20. So Kroom was asked to come and have a look in 27, and his brief was to get the second starting point somewhere in the vicinity of the clubhouse. So that's when 7 came back this way instead of going the way away that it feels like it should. So that resolved that. Then in 28, they think because Fowler went bankrupt, the club then looked to Braid for some more alterations, and we're not sure what he did. I mean, he had involvement, but the 17th, that penultimate par 3, we think that's Braid.
It's a good hole.
Which is quite interesting because Abercrombie's so famous for his par 3s, and the rest of his par 3s, or the par 3s he put in, are pretty much untouched. But they're... So Braid has introduced 17. I think it's a lovely finish here. Actually, that's something that, they look very different, New Zealand, West Byfleet, and they are in terms of the club and the course and the landscape, but they both just generate momentum towards the end of the round. They're great match play courses, and 17, 18 here are just fabulous. Par 3, par 5.
16 is...
I think we talked about that on the pod you did with us.
Too.
Previously, the eclectic 18, and you were talking about your dog and 17, and that, and the whole back 9 at New Zealand. The way it's not immediately noticeable, but it just gradually picks up,
doesn't it?
Yeah, just in terms of the profile of the hole, seemed to build very gradually.
Yeah.
Each one ever so slightly more than the last, and I think, that's spot on about the back 9 at West Byfleet too. Can we talk about the twin beaks?
Go on then.
You've always suggested you want to do this thing called the twin beaks. It's what your logo is. One of those logos where you can see it on a head cover, and you'll be like, "Oh, is that one Huntercombe, or is that New Zealand, or is that West Byfleet?" I'm really stumped.
Right. Yeah. So the logo here is definitely a green woodpecker at West Byfleet. I can't tell you how far back that goes, but I can tell you when you're out there playing, they're watching you. There's loads of them around. The New Zealand logo is an interesting one.
Do they peck and make noise?
Yeah, yaffle. They have a sort of laughing noise. They call them the yaffle, don't they? Green woodpecker. There we go. I know more about that than Bagshot Sand. The New Zealand logo is a woodpecker, and so interesting. I've been
Not
going
a green
through
woodpecker.
Well, no. So my wife's a bit of a twitcher, and she tells me that woodpecker does not exist on this planet because the colorations and so on are.
So it's like an artist impression.
So it's a fictitious woodpecker.
Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe it's I don't know.
Huntercombe definitely has a.
No, Huntercombe's the red kite. Which is,
come on, Sam.
It's quite hard to miss them there. You clearly haven't played there enough.
No, I haven't actually.
Have you played there at all?
I've played there once.
I've not played at Huntercombe.
Oh, you have to. It's got
bunkerless, isn't it?
They're my favourite set of greens I think I've seen. It's amazing.
Is it Willie Park Jr.?
Yeah,
correct.
And it feels like it's the course where Willie Park Jr., because he was designing the old at Sunningdale at the same time, with a little bit more internal supervision. I think the story goes at Sunningdale. He was lad free rein with the greens at Huntercombe, and they are just fabulous.
I think he was channeling his own inner Locke-King when he was working on Huntercombe, because he also managed to make himself broke on that in that process as well. In the process of
there's a pattern emerging, isn't there?
Well, you mentioned Fowler going broke. Fowler was a great cricketer and a successful architect, and drifted in.
But there's also
the high society.
There's also no outgoings if you're an architect. You wander around and you need paper and a pen. How do they keep getting it so wrong? It's just
flamboyant life. But then Simpson was turning up to clubs in Rolls Royces, wasn't he?
Went bankrupt.
Yeah, Mackenzie. Colt paid his debts off, didn't he?
Well, he was travelling so much. That's probably why he would.
Just in terms of final points about West Byfleet, Mackenzie and Ebert, do you know much about their works?
Yeah, so they were engaged in 2010-11, I think, initially to come along, and so they've brought the course up to the modern standard. So last year was the second centenary, and we had the Surrey Amateur here, and they finished their works, did a great job with the team here, finished the sort of polishing the course really for the modern game, moving a few bunkers and a couple of other things. It's the really interesting bit for me, because I love this sort of thing, is enlarging green sites, and that was the first phase of their involvement here, was really looking at that and trying to use old photos to plot out where they might have been, and we end up with far more flexibility in terms of where you put the pin, lots more interesting shots. And I think that works probably ongoing, but the surrounds as well are, I've only been playing here for
the runoffs, doesn't it? And it goes down. That's where it gets really exciting.
Yeah, and on a fairly flat piece of land, I just find that piece is integral to the golf course, because it's where it's protected. I think in the Surrey Amateur, I can't remember, I think 2 rounds, and they're proper golfers, those guys. The winner was a couple under, I think, off the top of my head. And that's, it's not long by modern standards, even off the purple tees. And yet there's 8 par 4s over 400 yards, and you've got to have a great short game, which I haven't got, but I haven't got a very good long game. But so it's they've done a really good job, and I think it's 6-7 now off the back tees. But it's you've played it. The 3 of us actually have only par 70.
Par 70. So 6-7 is like,
know that.
I know, but just to put some colour on that, 6-7. When you bring that up to a par 72, you're adding the best part, 200 yards a shot. So about 7-1. So it's not going to be a short golf course.
But it's not always that's the best tee to play off, is it? Like we would.
No. But going just saying, that's not.
And the wind's quite interesting here, because it's sort of pretty, well, what would you say? It's probably west-southwest as you go out towards 13. And so you play into the prevailing wind quite regularly. But the trees that are planted and the trees that are along our perimeter, certainly on the way, most of the way going out, they're tall enough that you don't always feel the wind until your ball gets up there, and you can get blown all over the place here. It was so much fun watching those people play. I mean, they're incredible golfers. But West Byfleet was a test for them, and no one ripped it apart.
Your interest in history, and particularly golf club history.
Yeah.
Is it just like an itch you just constantly need to scratch?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I just can't seem to get enough of the, particularly with course design. I think I worked on a golf course at Mitcham for 5 years, and that course has so much history as the original site for Prince's Golf Club. And I remember on my last day there, just sitting on a mower cutting tees or whatever, and I noticed a bunker I hadn't seen in 5 years of being on that property every single day. And I am interested in that, because none of these places, however well preserved we think a certain club might be, none of them stand still. You see that with Hoylake. I mean, Hoylake's changed so much over the years, and in the last few years, and the routing and new holes and so on, golf is evolving, and even these oldest, most traditional clubs evolve over time. I'm just, it fascinates me. I also think there's something beautiful about, I'm sort of reading less on a Kindle and picking up books these days, and I love the old minute books and stuff. I'm pouring through New Zealand's at the moment, and there's just gorgeous calligraphic handwriting, and
the handwriting back then was just,
it was amazing. I don't think they had much else to do, but Muir was running 2 clubs, but
so this, obviously, coming towards the end of this podcast, people are going to be dying for more from Richard Pennell. You've got a few things coming out. I think we can tease a little bit.
Yeah.
So how, tell me a little bit. You've obviously been writing on Substack for a while.
Yeah.
And now you've got a book.
Yeah. Thank you. So, Substack was... Well, I owe you guys a thank you.
He always says this. You always say this.
I do, though. I do, because
you guys
if you hadn't been so accommodating and published, Rank Outsiders, I would probably still be procrastinating about my own blog, and I love doing it.
Tom doesn't like those tongue-in-cheek titles of pieces. He doesn't like that. He told me.
We were just having a conversation. I think puns in titles, it kind of...
It's like
I
our
don't know
newsletter on Sunday was Harmon Reigns Supreme.
As in Reigns.
Yeah, I did notice
And
that.
I was... I'm more of a... Let's just stick to the facts here. Just Harmon wins.
Anyway, you're blowing some smoke up the cookie jar's backside here. I should say.
Yeah, so...
Please continue.
Please continue.
I like the blog. I like doing it. You'll see I've tried to tweak it in recent weeks, and it's a trial really, that, and I'm not sure if people like the sort of pulling together other stuff, but I find it interesting, and I like listening to other blogs and reading books, and it just, I need, if I'm going to do that and try and curate some stuff for 18 episodes or whatever I do as a trial, it forces me to go and pick out a different book from the bookshelf, or listen to something different, or explore, go deeper into golf than I already am. I feel like I'm so deep I'll never be able to climb out, but so I'm doing that, and I have a palette of books at home which is called Grassroots, which is a collection of stymied blog posts from last year with a few new bits in, and Blackwell's in there, and there's a piece on West Byfleet, without a pun in the title, that one.
Oh yeah, that's brilliant. Sold.
So that's that's a total dream come true, really. I do need to flog a few more, but because it's getting quite tight in the house, but that's it's so lovely. And actually, I didn't give it to you. I've got a copy for you downstairs. I'm waiting for the slip cases, and then I'll be sending more out, but it smells amazing. It's I wasn't expecting that.
We're going to talk to you about that, aren't we?
We're going to do a
keep
podcast
our powder
with this,
dry.
yeah. But we're just teasing it out.
Yeah, and I'll resist my line of questioning from now on.
we could ask one question. Is it available if people wanted to buy it? Is it available now, and how do they get it?
They can order it now, so pre-order.
Just you're on holiday and can't ship it.
Yeah, apart from that, yeah.
You've got to. He won't respond, but you've got to trust it will eventually turn up.
Yeah. So pitchmarks.substack.com, I think. Otherwise, you might need to correct that.
Did you ever think you were going to be a content creator?
No, no. And as you already know by this point, I'm barely holding the microphone correctly. I'm not cut out of the tech side of things.
You're not holding the microphone correctly at all.
Oh, okay. Right.
We corrected you once.
No,
I didn't feel like you could do it again.
I'm joking. But no, you fall into it, don't you?
Yeah, but I enjoy it, and it really feels like there's a sort of crowd, and I guess some of them were at the retro day, weren't they? There's a crowd of people just tickling around in different stuff. Some trying to do it for a living, and I'm doing that to some degree with writing and be useful, but some just doing it for the love of the game, and there's definitely a piece of that for me. We're coming at the game from all different angles, photographic and writing and other sorts of content and photography and videos and stuff, but we're all interested in the same stuff, it seems to me, and heritage and tradition and just good golf. It's all about good golf.
Do you feel like there's like a golf phoenix that's kind of worked in the industry and in an office-based environment and kind of fallen away from it and then reborn as someone who becomes in a very in the same environment, in the same atmosphere? You're playing, you're doing golf, but it's a completely different life that you're now living.
Yeah, I do. And I loved the jobs I had before this one, and worked at some amazing clubs, and this is another one of those. But I've just it feels like it should be called a midlife crisis, but it's not. It's just a course correction thing, and it's interesting in some ways having different plates to juggle or spin, juggling balls. But I'm really enjoying it, and it adds variety. And I'd lost the game somehow. I'd forgotten about the game. I'd been so buried in paperwork and admin nonsense, and now I play once or twice a week, and I can hit balls whenever I like, and I've completely got back the love for the game. And my bucket list of courses, which I'd neglected for years, so many places, this, you have access to the best golf courses in the whole world, and I've played loads of them, But there's loads where I've had invites that have been there 10 years and I hadn't got to them. And Blackwell's one of those. It's been on my list forever, and I've got some belters coming up that I've always meant to go and visit, and I just never had time. And now I've got time, and I can't get to them quick enough. The bucket list gets longer before I can, shrink it down again. It's
Well, isn't that brilliant? Because there would have been a time that wasn't that long ago that you just would have had no enthusiasm to go do that.
No, completely lost my golfing mojo. But now I'm playing more and just loving it each time, and my golf's not improving at all, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't seem to bother me.
Is it? But
the incessant throb of the patio beneath us at West Byfleet. It is a busy little place, this.
Yeah, and we need to go make some golfing memories of our own.
So without further ado, do you want to see, this is like a new guest partner. You get to say adios at the end of the podcast. So without further ado,
adios.
Watch this.